Hello and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Caitlin, and if you are not new here, it has been quite a while since I have posted anything. A lot has went on, which is why I'm making this video in specific. So let's just go ahead and jump in and kind of like fill you in on why I haven't been on here lately. So in October, my son actually broke his femur. It was like one of those freak accident kind of a things. We were getting ready for our annual Halloween party, and we were at my in-laws' house, and they had this very giant popcorn machine. He ended up pulling it over on top of himself and just breaking it right in half, essentially. It was definitely the scariest night of our life. We didn't even know it was broken at first. He wasn't like swollen. He was just crying unconsolably. We thought he was scared at first, and I just felt something was off. And so, because every time we tried to pick him up, he was freaking out. So I thought maybe his knee had hurt or something, but we took him into the ER and nothing else was wrong, which was great. He didn't have any internal bleeding or any brain trauma, but he did have a broken femur. We learned at that appointment that our son would have to be in a Spika cast, which obviously, if you've clicked on this video, you're probably in that situation, or maybe you're about to get into a Spika cast. But if you've ever seen one of those, they're pretty scary looking. And we really contemplated that night, like, what are we gonna do? Like, how are we gonna do this? So I'll insert like a picture here. There's a couple different Spika cast options. I know some kids have double leg Spika cast. Some just have a single leg, which is what my son had. His was actually only a single leg and then up the hip. I do know there are some that are like single leg on the hip and then like halfway down the other leg. Luckily, we didn't have to have that situation. So he was in his Spika cast for 6 weeks. They said about 5 to 6. I think it ended up being closer to the 5 range when we got it out. So I just wanted to go over our experiences with him being in a Spika cast. There is not a lot of material online about this specific cast. I know when my son got his on, I was scouring the internet trying to figure out like tips and tricks and what to do. Like, is this normal? Like, should they be doing this? And there are some helpful groups online, but I'm definitely a visual learner. And when it came to like diaper changing and all of that, like I just needed something. So I wanted to hopefully help some people out there who are going through this journey as well, because it is not talked about very much. But I did find out that a lot of people have been through this before with their kids breaking their femurs. So let's go ahead and jump on into talking about his specific journey and what he went through. So just a couple housekeeping things. My son is 2.5. He was, I think, literally was about to turn 2.5 when he got his Spika cast on. It was back in October. He is a boy, obviously, and I will insert a picture of his break on the screen. That way you can kind of compare and contrast to yours. Every break is so different. Everything is treated differently. It really depends on the age. We did not have to go through any surgery. I know there are kids who have to do surgery and are in it in a lot longer time period, or have to get traction done before they even get into the Spika cast. So we were very lucky with where it was, how old he was, because kids who are older tend to have more complications and end up having to have surgery. So that's just kind of like our parameters here. You may have a similar story to ours, and it'll be easier to compare and contrast what to do. But he just had the cast put on that night and nothing else had to be done for him. So I would say the first week of Spika cast life was very hard, not only on him, but on us as well. He was very upset. Obviously, he was very sore. He did not know what to do. The first 1 to 2 days, he wouldn't even, like, he did not want us to pick him up. He did not want us to move him. It was very hard. He was not eating properly. Like, he did not want to eat. He was in a lot of pain. We did a lot of like around the clock medications. One thing that we did do was ibuprofen and Tylenol, or Advil and whatever the 2 different ones are, every 3 hours, just swapping those back and forth. And like, do not skip. Do not be late on that, because they will start being in pain. The first few days were definitely, he was more swollen and just didn't understand what he had went through. I'm sure there was a lot of bruising under there. And then the other really hard part, which is, I just wish I had read about this somewhere, because I was not expecting this at all. And I really haven't even seen much about it, but I have seen a couple people talk about it like way after the fact. The first couple days, my son would not get into a deep sleep. So every time he would start falling asleep, he would kind of jerk himself awake and just start like uncontrollably crying, just screaming, almost like, you know, when you are falling asleep and you feel like you're falling off of a, you know, mountain or something, and you kind of catch yourself awake. It was like that. He kept just like jerking himself awake and just crying and screaming. So he couldn't get into a deep, full sleep for a few days. We didn't sleep at night. He couldn't take naps. Like, it was very bad. And I did learn that that could be a muscle thing because they're in so much pain. I also feel like it might be like PTSD or anxiety. I'm not exactly sure of the cause. I did give him treatment for both in case it was more like anxiety driven, or if it was more just he was in a lot of pain. I feel like it's probably a combination of both because they just went through a very traumatic experience depending on what happened to break it. So I did give him a supplement. I will link it down below. It is called Mintran. I just broke his up and then crushed it and added it to his bottle that he would drink because he would take milk. He would not eat anything, but he would take that, where I would put like in a yogurt or something, and that helped just with his anxiety of it. And then I also spoke with his doctor, and they told me to up his medicine a little bit, and the combination of those two seemed to really help because after like the third day it definitely went away and he was actually able to sleep fully without waking himself up. Him not like letting us do anything for a few days, I would say definitely I could tell he was starting to get a bit depressed. My little boy is very on the go. He is I won't stop, you know, from sun up to sundown. Like, he loves to get on machines. He loves to run around, like he just goes, and he's never like laying down or like watching movies and stuff. So I could tell he was starting to get a little bit depressed. Like, you can kind of just tell from the way he was looking and acting. Thankfully, around like day 4 or 5, he definitely started to perk up a little bit. We ended up getting a wagon. I will link that down below. It was a like lifesaver for the situation. Like, if you get anything, get a wagon that is big enough for them to lay in, depending on how big your child is, because that gave us the opportunity to take him around. Because if you've never felt a Spika cast before, they are very heavy, and so it was very hard for us to carry him around for long periods of time without our arms just being completely exhausted. So we were able to put him in the wagon, put a bunch of pillows at the bottom and blankets, and we were able to take him outside, which he really enjoyed, and that definitely like perked him up a bit. Around like 4 to 5 days as well, he was letting us move him around a little bit more. He would get a little bit skittish still, but we were able to actually put him on the floor. We were very like concerned on what we could do with him. Based on our ER visit, they pretty much were like, you can't do anything. Like, they can only just like lay down. When we ended up going to ortho a week later, they were like, oh yeah, you can, put him on his belly, which the ER doctor told we couldn't. And like, you can do this, you can do that. And so we had a lot more confidence to start moving him around more. And they're like, you're not gonna hurt him. We were able to start putting him on his belly. We were able to put him on his back on the floor, prop him up on a pillow. And so he was actually able to start playing with some of his toys and some new toys that we had gotten him. I'm gonna make a whole separate video on just like activities and toys that worked very well for the Spika cast, but we were able to start doing little things like that with him. And I think that definitely started to get him in a better mindset and mood because he figured out that he can do things himself. Around 2 weeks, he really started to like come out of his shell and determine that he could do anything in this cast. So I'd say around like the 2-week mark, he started crawling, more like scooting, like army crawling, pulling himself places. He would, flip over from front to back. He was like standing on, like pulling himself up onto things and kind of like propping himself up on one knee so he could like play in his play kitchen. So that was like very reassuring. And again, this is different for every kid. Every kid is so different. And I'm in a Spika cast group on Facebook, and there's people who are like, my kid's still not doing anything at 4 weeks, and that's okay. So every kid just handles things differently. My kid has just never been like a coloring kid and will sit there and do stuff. I will say his attention span definitely got a lot longer having to watch so many movies laying on the couch. Around the 2-week mark as well, he started to smell really bad. He was peeing out of it a lot. If you have a boy, you know, it's hard to control where pee goes. And with the Spika cast, you want to double diaper. This was something that they didn't really explain to us very well in the hospital. So with the diapering, they gave us a newborn diaper to put underneath, and then they said to put his regular diapers on top. And we noticed very quickly that that was not working. He was peeing out of it constantly. It was getting all over the cast, and we did not know that we could wash his cast at this point. They told us at the ER that it was just sponge baths, which is the case, I think, with most casts. However, we did actually end up learning on that his was waterproof. He really started to smell like pee, so I started looking up different things on how to clean it. There really wasn't a ton of information, but one thing I really did find was you can actually mix a couple things in water. So like water and eucalyptus oil, or like vinegar and water, spray it on the cast and dab it. That's really gonna help kind of mute that smell a bit. So that is my one tip. If your cast is not waterproof and you're having to do sponge baths, a hair dryer is gonna be your best friend, because if you get it wet and your girl or boy pees in the cast, you wanna make sure you blow dry it really quickly so it doesn't stay wet. And then also, I think using a good spray with eucalyptus oil really helps get rid of the smell. But we found out the better way to do it was the diaper underneath was just not big enough. It wasn't stretching all the way up his butt and then to the front to where we could tuck it in well. So we actually went up a couple sizes. I think we ended up doing size 3s. My son is in size 6, and I think he was in size 6 at that time. Normally, so the size 6s definitely fit over his Spika cast, but we did size 3 underneath. That way we could tuck it into the back, the sides, and the front. By around like week 4, he was pretty much doing everything that he normally could. He was trying to walk, he was trying to stand, which those are all things that our ortho said would be totally fine if he did it. It wasn't gonna hurt him in any way. Obviously, he's not like jumping off the couch. They don't want them to do that, but his was weight bearing. He could bear weight on his leg if he felt comfortable. If he didn't, he would have gotten down. So he really started trying to test the limits on standing and pulling himself up on things and walking. We actually ended up taking a vacation during this. So the week before we got his cast off, we went on a cruise. We went to Disney and we went on a cruise. And I'm gonna make a whole other video about that as well, just like traveling with the Spika cast, because there is nothing online about that. But he did very well on that trip. We almost didn't go when we found out this was happening, and then we decided, you know what, like, it's gonna make the time go faster. His doctors are saying it's fine. And we did learn that it was waterproof. So with our cast, it was a little bit easier. After week 2, we found out that it was waterproof. We just happened to ask them about our trip, and they're like, oh yeah, just only use clear water. And we were just like, wait, what? And we found out that his specific cast, it was like the Delta Dry or something like that. His specific cast could get wet. It dries in 90 minutes, and it did dry pretty quickly. I would say the longest that it took to dry was in the leg portion, but we were able to give him like full on baths. He was able to get in water. So like we took him to the splash pad. He couldn't get in salt water, obviously, but we were able to take him in the splash pad on our cruise boat. So that was like really, really helpful as far as the smell goes. I would definitely, if you're going to get a Spika cast, I would definitely ask them about your options and see if that is an option for you to do a waterproof cast, because that really changed the game for us halfway through, knowing that we could clean him, especially with all the urine that is just unavoidably happens just because, you know, they're laying so much that it tends to just pull into the back. So that is something I would definitely check into if that is an option for you, or if you have to end up getting your cast changed out to get a waterproof one. That's just the one that they gave us at the hospital. So my son did get his cast off at 5 weeks. I would say he was very excited to get his cast off. It is very loud. I think I have some video I can insert. He didn't freak out. He only freaked out like a tiny bit when he got it off. I would say after he got it off was definitely hard, because he was very sore, obviously, when the leg has been in one spot for 5 weeks. But I think he was also just more scared than anything that like his leg was broken, that he couldn't move it. So I would say it took him about 3 or 4 days to actually like start walking on his leg. The first day was definitely a no-go. He just kept saying things like, this leg works and this one doesn't. And he did not, like he was just very tired and cranky and did not want to do anything. The next day we did try to work with him a little bit, just kind of like letting him stand. It freaked him out. So we kind of let him go at his own pace. And around like that third or fourth day, he actually started limping on it pretty good. We ended up taking him to Paw Patrol Live, and he decided that with like his little friend, and he decided that day that he could walk on his leg and jump on his leg and do everything. And the healing time is so different for everyone. I see people on the Spika Cast group that are like, my kid's still not walking after 2 weeks or 3 weeks. I think it just really depends on the kid, but he had a limp for probably about a month, I would say, maybe a little less than a month. He did have a very giant muscle knot, I discovered. So we were taking him to the chiropractor to kind of get that worked out with Graston, and they didn't recommend any like physical therapy for him. So I'm glad we were able to find that muscle knot, because once that was worked out, we did a couple treatments with that, like he was walking fine. He didn't have a limp anymore at all. So I would recommend maybe going to see a chiropractor for something like that, especially for their hips, because obviously he was in this Spika cast that was up above his belly button, and their hips just get all kind of twisted when that's going on. So it's really helpful to get like their hips adjusted and get them all kind of aligned back in order. So that was our journey pretty much in short with the Spika cast. It was very hard, very rough, especially the first week. There were definitely a lot of times where we shed tears, he shed tears. Just know you're not alone. There's so many people who have went through this, are going through this. And you know, if you have any questions at all, please reach out in the comments below. I am willing to answer any questions. If I get a ton of questions, I can also make a separate video answering those. But you know, every person's journey is different with this, and you will get through it, because I know that first week is so hard, and you think, I mean, there were so many times where we're like, how are we going to do this? Like this, there's no way we can do this for, you know, so many weeks. And we only had 6. There's some people who have 12 and even more than that, or have to live with this for a while for like other reasons, such as like hip dysplasia and stuff. So it's just rough either way, but if I can help make it any easier, I would love to. Like I said, I'm going to film some videos on some different activities and equipment that we use that really helped make our journey easier. And I'm also going to make a video on how to travel with it. I will say that we had car seat that they gave us, because I know that's a big question, was the one, actually I think, or it's up there. I still haven't taken it back. I need to take it back to the hospital. It was the one that's like a harness where they lay on the back seat, and we ended up figuring out that he could fit in his car seat. So depending on how your cast is, there's actually a lot of things that you can do. His wasn't super wide, so he ended up being able to fit in his stroller and his car seat, which was really great for our trip. But I will also go over, if they can't, I have some recommendations. So if you're interested in that, or you're going through this, hit that subscribe button down below, and then I will have some new videos shortly kind of going over some more aspects of our Spika journey.